Hey everyone, Maitreya Wolf here with the Art of Soulful Living vlog. Thank you so much for joining me. I want to talk today about something that's really up for me right now, and that is the art of listening. It's such an extraordinary time that we're in right now. We're in this incredible transition. I feel like we've finally crossed the threshold from the possibility of change into the actual realm of change. And I believe that we are changing from a life-denying hierarchical system of power through dominance and violence to a life-affirming system of collaborative power through communion and community and relationship. And it's a really exciting time, and it's a really uncertain time, because for all of these structures to dissolve and all of these structures to rise will take some time, and there will be a lot of jostling, we could say, as this power that does not want to let go of its power is compelled ultimately to let go of its power, because that's what's best for life. And this power comes into its power and learns how to actually be collaborative, which, you know, if you've ever lived in a community house, you know, it sounds easier than it is when it's like whether or not somebody does their dishes can like undo the house. It takes some work, it takes some patience, it takes some doing, and it takes a lot of listening to be in the transition that we're in right now, and to make this transition the deepest transformation that it can be. We have to cultivate the skill of listening. And I can say that most people believe that they are good listeners, and I would not agree for the most part that most people are good listeners, and I don't fault anyone for that, though it does drive me crazy. And the reason I would say that I don't agree with this kind of on principle is because in North America, where I'm coming from and the place that I speak from and to, we do what I call the volley of eyes as the primary conversational and communicative mode. The volley of eyes. And that's this kind of phenomenon that when you're in conversation, you'll start something, you'll say, well, this, that, and the other thing, I had this experience today, this, that, and the other thing, and da 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 da. And the person will respond to you, oh, I had this experience that I believe relates to that experience, and it was such and so and such and so and such and so for me. And then the first person comes back with another I statement, and these I statements go back and forth, go back and forth, go back and forth. And I have found over the course of my life that these kinds of conversations, they stay at a pretty beginner level. Like, it's the beginner realm of the conversation. It's where you start the conversation, but it's hard to go deep in a conversation like this. And there's another thing that comes with the volley of eyes, and that's what I call riffing on keywords. And that's, you know, when someone begins speaking and then they're going through their initial sentence, or, you know, whatever, supplemental sentences, they're going through the initial thing, and then the person who's receiving that communication hears a word in there that triggers something in them, and they start talking. They interrupt the person who's talking, and they start talking with something that they think is relevant or relative. This also keeps the conversation in the opening stages, because in this kind of conversation, when you're dealing with the volley of eyes and when you're dealing with riffing on keywords, you're not ever fully conveying a thought as the person offering something, you're not fully receiving what's being shared as the person in the receiving side of the conversation. You're just batting words back and forth, but you're not actually traveling anywhere together. And this is the common conversational pattern in North American society, and I will say that it's in European society as well. When I've traveled there or interacted with European society, folks, they do the same thing. When I'm interacting with people who don't speak English, I don't really think about these things, because if we don't speak the same language, we're already operating on a different level conversationally anyway. So the skill of listening, the actual skill of listening, the art of listening, is about receiving, really deeply receiving. And you'll notice I'm very visceral, I'm very somatic. I experience things through my body. So there's this way you can track this in communications. You can take this little nugget as you go about your day or your week or whatever. You can take this little nugget and explore it. You can track this in your communications, that you'll feel your energy literally rise up and start to move out of yourself in the course of a conversation. It'll go towards the other person while they're speaking frequently. And that's where the volley of eyes and the riffing on keywords both come in. Is like, you'll be there, you'll be receiving, and then all of a sudden you'll hear something that'll cause you to actually lean forward even into the communication energetically and start to impress yourself energetically into the space of the communication. So the art of listening, the art of actually listening, is to drop back and open with your energy body. It's a visceral thing. As much as it's a consciousness thing, it's a visceral thing. It's a somatic thing. Instead of pressing forth into the space with something to say or something to offer, you soften back into receptivity. You not withdraw, but you rest. Listening is a receptive act. It's an active process, but the action of it is receptivity. Listening is receptivity. Listening is when you sit back and you let something in. And you will find over time, if you actually start to experiment with this, you'll find over time that as you actually tame your urge to press forward into the space of the conversation, as you actually tame your urge to do that, you start to feel what's being communicated to you differently. And then you can bring in a different tool than the volley of eyes. You can bring in the question. When somebody says, I had this experience today and it brought these things up for me and it brought these things to life for me and I felt these ways about it, instead of responding with an I statement, you respond with an inquiry and invite the person to deepen what they're sharing, instead of coming back with your own thing and starting to make the communication about you and your experience and how you feel now. You come back with an inquiry. You know, if the person says, I had this experience today and it made me feel this way and it brought up these things for me and blah, 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 and you say, oh, I hear you had this experience today. Tell me more about what came up for you. You just mentioned such and so. I'd love to hear more about that and how it relates to such and so and such and so, and continue to open the space for them to deepen instead of trying to impress your own experience into the space. Because in the course of a good conversation, the space naturally opens for each member to participate. And the more space we make for each other, the more rich the conversation gets, the more we actually begin to learn and be affected by what's being shared. And this is especially important if you're going to be engaging with topics like racism or political beliefs or beliefs around the ecological, environmental crisis or the economy or any of these very, or the pandemic, any of these very hot button topics. If you're going to be in these conversations in any way that is useful and transformative and expansive and comfortable for everybody involved, this art of listening is hugely important. When somebody begins to share, if you're a white person and a person of color begins to share something with you, sit back in yourself and really, really listen. Really deeply listen. Really deeply receive what's being offered to you in that moment. And when they have finished their thought, when they have finished their thought, reflect on it and then invite them to share more. Or if you really have something to share in that moment, say, I feel like I have something to share right now. Do you have more to say? Or may I bring this forward into the conversation right now? And start to make more space for each other. Make more space for each other. Because it makes the experience of conversing, of being in conversation together, so much more rich and so much more transformative and so much more powerful. This is like, conversation is an alchemical process when we actually engage in it intentionally. Most of the times we're moving way too fast. And now we've got all this conditioning around communication that's come out of our 15-year immersion in social media now, where we're moving way too fast and we are way too invested in our opinions. We are way too invested in having something to say that has to be heard, where we have on so many levels abandoned the incredible position of actually listening. And that's where the transformation that needs to happen in all of these enormous topics, that's where this transformation is going to happen, is in the realm of relationship, conversation, communication, relating. This is about relating. And if we are just pushing ourselves into the space, if we are just overtaking the space, anybody, if we are just overtaking the space, then we are diminishing or annihilating the possibility of the transformation that could happen in that space. If we can actually share the space by learning how to listen again, not by suppressing ourselves, but by becoming receptive. If we can learn how to listen again, then transformations that want to take place inside of these relationships will have the space to take place. And the relationships will become more rich, more powerful, more nourishing, more satisfying, and more enjoyable for everyone involved. So this is the art of listening. Cultivate the art of listening. Learn or remember how to be quiet and to receive what is being shared. Learn or remember how to reflect on it, to really take it in and reflect on it before you respond. Learn or remember how to make space for each other in your communications. This in and of itself will change the quality of your life. It will change the quality of your relationships. It will change the quality of your whole experience in such a beautiful way. So, thank you for listening. That is my little take on the art of listening. And I pray that it's brought something of beauty into your day, something of value, and something that you can use. My name is Maitreya Wolf. I do healing work. I do body work. I do mentoring, which is, counseling and all these other wonderful things. And I do music. I do performance and recording. I do storytelling. I do wisdom talks. I do a lot of things. And I would love to do all of those things with you and for you for your groups. So if you're interested, be in touch. My contact information is in the description below. Please check out my new album, Fertile Darkness, on Spotify, Apple Music, and Bandcamp. And subscribe and hit the notifications button so we can keep in touch. Thank you again for listening. All blessings to you.